Hello everybody, Mark at 100% Pure Elvis. Thank you all for taking the time out to return to my channel today. And if you are new to the 100% Pure Elvis channel, thank you and I hope you enjoy this upload. As we are all aware, it is Elvis week. This Friday coming, August the 16th, it is the 47th anniversary of Elvis Presley's sad passing. On this upload today, I just want to share with you some items that to me epitomise Elvis Presley's career. As many of my subscribers will be aware, I really started collecting Elvis in around 87, 88, around 10 years after Elvis's sad passing. I was brought up in a household full of love for Elvis, and it just followed on from there, really. And my collecting of Elvis started in the late 1980s. The first thing that I collected was CDs, books, posters, magazines, etc. And again, the first item I remember purchasing out of my own money was actually a book. And the book in question was Elvis, A King Forever by Robert Gibson with Sid Shaw. And again, this book holds a very special place in my heart because, again, I remember when I purchased this book, and it was the first book I purchased on Elvis, I used to read it constantly. I'd read it over and over again. And I just remember looking at the images inside of this book. And, you know, it goes like from from his humble beginnings to superstardom to his sad passing. And I remember the image on the front. To me, it was so impactful from the movie The Trouble with Girls. And at that time, when I purchased this book, I didn't know much about this image because I didn't really know much about Elvis Presley's movie career. I knew the well-known movies like GI Blues, Blue Hawaii, King Creole, Love Me Tender, but I really didn't know too much else about his other movies. And I absolutely loved this image of Elvis, and to this day, it's still one of my favourite images of Elvis. So this book holds a very special place in my heart, Elvis, A King Forever. And again, when I talk about Elvis, you know, I always talk about, you know, when people ask me, what was your first item that you added to your collection? From what I remember, it was this. The first vinyl that I remember purchasing, actually, I need to rewind there. The first vinyl that I actually owned on Elvis was on the Arcade label, and it was the 40 Greatest Hits. And I haven't got a copy in front of me. It's downstairs, unfortunately. But again, I am sorry about that. But the first CD that I ever owned on Elvis, I've got the vinyl version, but I've got the CD version in my bedroom. But I wanted to share with you the vinyl, if you don't mind. But the first ever CD of Elvis that I owned was Presley, the All-Time Greatest Hits. And again, I used to play this constantly. And again, as you are all aware, it had the all-time greatest hits of Elvis. And again, at that time, I wouldn't have known all of Elvis's back catalogue. I would have only have known the big hitters, your number ones, your top tens, and maybe some of your soundtrack songs. But Presley, the all-time greatest hits, was the first CD that I ever owned on Elvis, but this is the vinyl version. So, yep, that was the first CD that I ever purchased. But when you talk about Elvis, you go from his debut album, Elvis Presley Rock and Roll, to his last album in 1977, Moody Blue. To me, you can't get any further apart, can you? You know, very different. You got the rock and roller of the 1950s to the best entertainer that ever graced the world stage, 1977 Moody Blue. To me, when you say out of the two, what epitomizes Elvis, many people would go for his debut album because that's where it all started. And I possibly would agree. When you talk about Elvis and you talk about his studio albums, you can't go too far from his debut album from 1956. But to me, the last studio album that Elvis recorded, Moody Blue, I prefer, because I prefer the later albums of Elvis, and I've never shied away from that. But again, of course, I love the rock and roll side of Elvis from the 1950s, but I was brought up in a household that was mainly, my mum mainly played 1970s Elvis or some from the soundtracks from the 60s. And as I was saying, I really got into collecting Elvis in the late 1980s. And when I really knuckled down and started collecting, that's when I realized all of the amazing albums that he released, all of the great recordings, the movies. And again, I remember the first time that I watched the 1968 comeback special, and I watched that on TV. I remember when it was aired on TV, so that would have been, I think it possibly was in 1987, the 10th year after his passing. I think it was shown on TV. And I just remember watching Elvis on screen, on TV, in that black leather suit, back doing what he did best in front of a live audience. It absolutely, to me, I was in awe. And I just remember thinking, this man means so much to me. And I've never wavered since. At every single time that I watch the 68 special, I'm in awe. I just think, again, many people were saying Elvis was losing himself in the movies. The Beatles were consistently at number one on both sides of the Atlantic. I think this was a masterstroke from Elvis and Steve Binder to do the 68 special. And the clothing, the black leather suit, your white If I Can Dream suit at the end, and the gospel section, and the gold glitter suit, genius. To me, absolutely. For me, epitomizes everything that Elvis stood for at that time. And then you go on to, again, fast forward to 1973, Alo From Hawaii via satellite. Again, the first recording artist to do a satellite concert beamed worldwide to an audience of over 1 billion. Only Elvis could do that. And again, to me, watching both concerts, I remember the first one I watched was the one that was beamed worldwide. But when I saw the alternate concert, absolutely preferred that one. And for me, when you talk about Aloha from Hawaii, was Elvis ever in better voice? Again, to me personally, the alternate concerts, absolutely. I truly believe Elvis was at his best there as on stage. I've never really seen an Elvis concert where he is weak vocal wise, but I truly believe Aloha from Hawaii is Elvis's best concert performance to this day. So again, obviously you had the 68 special, you had Elvis on tour, Aloha from Hawaii, and the 1977 CBS special. My preference is Aloha from Hawaii. Again, people might say, well, shouldn't it be the 1968 special? Because, again, that at that time was so important in Elvis Presley's career. getting back in front of a live audience. Don't get me wrong, I think they're very different on both levels, aren't they? You know, the 68 special, you know, Elvis needed that. Elvis needed to do that 68 special. But when it comes to Alo From Hawaii, I think Elvis was again back comfortably doing what he was best at doing on the world stage in front of a live audience, giving his adoring public what they wanted. And I truly believe, you know, my go-to is Alo From Hawaii. And then obviously you go to the gospel side of Elvis, and I'm not a very religious man, but again, I remember my mum used to play some gospel music of Elvis in the house because my mum is religious, and I didn't really focus on Elvis gospel a lot, but when I started collecting Elvis and started purchasing his gospel music, again, you know, Elvis could sing anything, couldn't he? You got your rock and roll, you got your pop, you got your gospel, you got your country. If Elvis wanted to record it, he would record it. And my favourite gospel album would have to go to His Hand in Mine. I just think it's such a beautiful gospel album. And again, you know, as we are all aware, Elvis won 2 Grammys for his gospel recordings, and you can see why, because beautifully recorded, and Elvis again, he's doing what I truly believe. I think Elvis's favourite type of music to sing was gospel. I think Elvis felt more comfortable recording gospel. It went to his heart. It was what he was brought up on. You know, he was surrounded with gospel music as a young child going to church. And I truly believe if Elvis would have lived, I think he would have recorded more gospel recordings. And then again, when I got really into the collecting side of Elvis, you know, I started collecting his studio albums from the 1970s first. Then I went into the 1960s and 1950s. So I actually went back ways. And I've never, ever shied away from what my favourite album of Elvis is. And many people have asked me, you know, Elvis Presley recorded, so I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water. Elvis Presley recorded so many great albums. He recorded so many great studio albums, soundtrack albums, gospel albums, live in concert albums. And again, some people might say, how can you choose a favourite? It is difficult, but to me, one album, to me, stood out. When I started buying Elvis, this album, to me, really hit home in respect of, I played it constantly, and I still do to this day. I never tire of listening to this album. And my favourite Elvis album, the 1970 release of That's the Way It Is. The copy I've got here is the 4 LP set from Music on Vinyl. But do you know what? I love everything about this album. I love the front cover. My favourite Elvis Presley front cover. This style of the front cover, the gothic writing at the top. And I just think the track listing on That's the Way It Is, you know, from one of my favourite songs, I Just Can't Help Believing, Mary in the Morning, The Next Step is Love, the beautiful cover version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, absolutely stunning. And again, yeah, I will never ever change my mind on that, you know, because this is the album that has meant the most to me throughout Elvis Presley's recording career. Elvis, That's the Way It Is. And again, when you talk about Elvis as an entertainer, and you talk about his career, and you talk about the impact that Elvis had and still has on the world stage to this day. You just look at the numbers that visit Graceland year in, year out. You look at the numbers that visit Germany year in, year out. And when RCA release a new album featuring Elvis, it consistently reaches the UK album charts and the United States of America. It might not reach the dizzy heights of number one, but it will always sell. And again, but when you look at Elvis, Elvis is an artist that people will always consistently buy. You know, Elvis transcends every generation. You know, I have many people talk to me from all different ages, and they want to know about Elvis. They want to know about his career. They want to know, why is Elvis so important still to this day? The answers that I give is, just watch the 68 special, watch Alo From Hawaii, watch his early career from the 1950s. You will then understand how special this man was throughout his recording career. And when you then talk about Elvis Presley movies, you know, we all know that Elvis was moved into the motion pictures. The early pictures in the 1950s, he was such a serious actor. You could see talent there. You're going into the early 1960s movies, and again, some great movies there. But to me, you're looking at the mid 1960s. I truly believe some of the movies got lost in the way because of the Beatles. People weren't going to watch Elvis movies as much. But to me, my favourite Elvis movie is actually his last motion picture, Change of Habit. My second favourite is Blue Hawaii, with my third going to Live a Little, Love a Little. But again, I get asked, you know, what about your King Creoles? What about your Jailhouse Rock and Your Lovin' You? Absolutely great movies, stunning. But to me, I think Change of Habit, because I remember watching that for the first time. I just thought it was very different, and I just think he plays a great part. And I know you got your rubbernecking. I like the soundtrack Change of Habit, and I like Let Us Pray. But again, it's just my favourite movie, Blue Hawaii, because that was my mum's favourite, still is my mum's favourite, and I love the soundtrack. And Live a Little, Love a Little, because I think it's a quirky storyline, and the soundtrack is out of this world. And then you get talking about, you know, your favourite Elvis Presley recordings. As we are all aware, Elvis recorded many a recording. And do we all have favourites? Yes. I mean, my favourite from the 1950s, I'm going to go for I Need Your Love Tonight, but closely followed by Crawfish. You know, I absolutely love them two songs. But again, there's so many from the 1950s, isn't there? You know, from the 1960s, I'm going to have to go for, it's a Long Black Limousine, I think, or oh God, the Tomorrow Is a Long Time. Trying to think of some more. There are two off the top of my head that I can think of from the 1960s that are my favourite. From the 1970s, my favourite has to go to Bringing It Back from the Today album and The Last Farewell. I love the live version from the alternate concert of What Now My Love, an American Trilogy, and my other favourite is My Way from the 1977 CBS special, and Unchained Melody from the 1977 CBS special. So again, you know, when you're talking about Elvis as an entertainer, again, to me, why he is so important still to this day is because he transcends everything. He transcends all styles of music. He transcends, you know, every generation. There's every generation will bring up new Elvis Presley fans, and I truly believe that. And again, you get some people saying, "Well, how much is there of Elvis to collect out there?" You know, that there's still a lot to collect. I mean, my collection, you know, even though I say it's considerably big, I know there's a lot of people out there that have a bigger collection. And again, when I decide what I'm going to purchase on Elvis, it has to go on price. What does it add to my collection? And do I need it in the collection? And again, you know, there is items that along the way I've missed out on. And you know, but what you don't miss, you don't lose, don't do you? So I'm always on eBay. I'm always looking out for new Elvis items or secondhand Elvis items to add to the collection. And again, you know, growing up in a household full of love for Elvis, I actually was a bit of a loner. So again, you know, collecting Elvis in the late 1980s, you know, that was me kind of doing something that made me happy. That's not to say I wasn't in a household full of love. I was, but I struggled growing up, especially as a teenager going into my 20s. You know, again, you know, I don't want to go too much into it, but, you know, I knew that I was a gay man. I was attracted to men, but I really didn't deal with it until my mid-20s. So I really struggled in my teenage years into my early 20s. But then obviously, you know, when I started collecting Elvis, it was a release for me because it was something that I wanted to do. It was my identity. And again, Elvis helped me through coming out as a gay man, helped me through the highs and lows. And to this day, you know, whenever I'm having a bad day or if I'm wanting to get myself in a place where I need to calm down and relax, I turn to Elvis. That's not to say my husband isn't a support mechanism. He is, absolutely supports me 100%. But my husband knows that, you know, listening to Elvis to me puts me in a place where I can calm myself right down. And again, people might say, how can someone who's not here anymore have that impact on your life? And I think it's very difficult to give reasons why. The only thing I can say is, for me, it is the human being that Elvis was, the kind gentleman he was, the songs that he recorded, they were to the heart. And I can put an Elvis album on and I know how it's going to make me feel. I just know. And again, collecting Elvis absolutely is something that absolutely I know I will consistently be doing. You know, I see stuff on Elvis that I can only dream of owning because they're too far out of my price range. But again, you know, I look at some people's collection and I'm in awe. And but I'm quite happy with the collection that I do have. And through Elvis, I have met so many good friends who are so close to me and mean the world to me. It doesn't mean I see them frequently, but I can pick up the phone to so many friends who are Elvis fans, and I know they'll be there and they support me. We support each other. And it's like an Elvis family, isn't it? You all support each other. And Elvis brings people together. You know, unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to pay my respects to Elvis at Graceland, and that is something that I deeply regret. You know, that is something I know I need to do before I leave this earth. I need to pay my respects to Elvis because, again, Elvis has helped me no end through my life. And I want to be able to pay my respects to someone who, even though he wasn't there personally, he was there through my deepest and darkest hours, and he was there in my happy hours. And I absolutely need to get my head into a space where I know I can do it. I know that I can get to Graceland. I know that I will be looked after. I know that that is what Elvis would want. You know, Elvis would want me to absolutely go and pay my respects, because if that is something that I don't do, I'll always regret it. I'll always regret it. And you know, every year when August comes around, I look at these images online or on Elvis groups of people at Graceland, and I'm in awe, and I just think these people are there paying respect to an entertainer and their idol that means so much to them. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I will do it. And I think maybe I've got to absolutely try and arrange with a few friends to go with them and kind of, you know, just get on that plane and put some headphones on, watch a movie, and just get it done. Because, you know, I think for me, when I'm talking about Elvis, you know, I'll talk for hours, you know, and I think sometimes people might think, oh, for God's sake, Mark, shut up. But for me, I know I bring happiness to people. You know, this YouTube channel, I've had amazing support. You know, I've had so many kind and wonderful people get back to me and say, Mark, you have brought Elvis back into my life. Thank you so much. You know, that was my intention. It was my intention to start this channel to share Elvis, to share my love of Elvis, and to share my collection. And the other thing is, people have said, Mark, you've inspired me to start listening to Elvis again. Thank you all so much. I mean, again, that is something else that I wanted. And your feedback, I promise you, even though you might not see it, it helps me no end. You know, I really, really relish the feedback you are all giving. And again, for me, I've not long recently started a new Facebook group, and you are all welcome to join. My Facebook group, it is based on Facebook, and it is called Elvis Presley Fan Group, Coventry, UK. And I've named it that because I want to start meeting fellow Elvis fans that live in Coventry, which is where I live in the United Kingdom. But please, the group is open to all Elvis fans worldwide. I'm going to be sharing my love of Elvis on my Facebook group as well. It's going to be very different from the YouTube channel. It will be, again, photos, news, catch-ups. And so again, Elvis Presley Group, Coventry, UK. You know, if you're looking at joining that Facebook group, please find my group online and I'll get you subscribed. And again, but before I sign out, because I'm aware that we're nearly on half an hour, when Elvis passed away in 1977, I was four and a half, and I've got a twin brother. And I remember my mum told me that the day Elvis died, she told me and my twin brother, and we cried our eyes out. And she says, you understood what I was saying. We understood that Elvis was no longer with us, and we both cried. And I just think, and my mum telling us that Elvis had sadly passed away and we cried, I just think says it all, really. And I think Elvis has never been out of my life, and he never will be, and I know that, again, my husband, he's not an Elvis fan, and many people say, is that difficult in a relationship? Not at all, because again, my husband has his own interests. He's an artist, he's a painter, he collects art, and so that's what he loves doing. And but he appreciates my love of Elvis. And some people will also say, do you know, when you talk about the most important person in your life, and to me, of course, it's my partner, but Elvis has always been there. Elvis has been there through thick and thin for me. And my husband knows that before him, Elvis was always there. So it's very difficult to say. But again, I'd put them in a place where my love for my husband is very different from the love that I have for Elvis. And again, but they're both as strong as each other. And again, I've been asked before, growing up as a young gay man, like in my late teenage years and early 20s, was there an attraction to Elvis? Now, do you know what? I've never looked at Elvis in that way as a gay man. Elvis, to me, was, so handsome. Elvis was the most handsome man ever. And to me, when you look at Elvis, you got your three eras, your 50s, your 60s, and your 70s. To me, Elvis in the 50s, raw sex appeal, raw. And you could absolutely, that is what was coming on that screen. That is what Elvis wanted. That's what he was about. Your 1960s, your matinee movie star Elvis. And when do I think Elvis was at his best in respect of looks wise? Do you know what? I absolutely love the way he looked in the 1969 press conference. Stunning. I love the way he looked in Change of Habit. Obviously, I keep on saying comebacks. I hate it being called the comeback special, but the 1968 special, absolutely hot. And Alo From Hawaii. But do you know what? I mean, and again, sorry for going on, but again, for me, when some also say when Elvis started putting on weight, when I look at images of Elvis, he started putting on weight, I would say, around 1974 onwards. Alo From Hawaii, you can see he was more chunky than Elvis on tour, but still looked amazing. But do you know what? I mean, even when he had weight, to me, looked amazing. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously, I mean, you can see towards the end he looked quite ill, but poured his heart out, voice never left him, gave his adoring public everything they wanted. And again, for me personally, people say, why didn't Elvis stop the concert tours? I've given my reasons for that. I think it was out of his hands. You know, Colonel Tom Parker kept him on this busy concert schedule. I think maybe Elvis could have been more stricter and said, no, hold on, I want to take a year out. But I think he wanted to consistently tour, didn't he? He wanted to be in front of his fans. That's what he loved doing. And I think Elvis was very frightened to lose his, you know, not lose his fans, but he was frightened to lose that, like in the record charts, I think, what I'm trying to say. But he never would have. You know, his fans would have never have left him. But again, before I close out, going back to the sad day of August 16th, 1977, please, can you share your memories in the comments below? You know, if you were around in them days and you're old enough to remember, can you please share your memories? I'd love to read them below. And again, what can you remember, where were you and what were you doing? And again, what's your earliest memory of Elvis? And I'd love to hear that as well. And again, what was your, try and think of how to word it really. Can you remember the first time that Elvis entered your life? That's what I'm trying to say. And for me, it was through my mum, constantly having Elvis on in the background, constantly watching Blue Hawaii. For me, my first huge impact collecting Elvis was going back to that first book, Elvis a King Forever, and then Presley, the all-time greatest hits, but then gradually collecting the studio albums and seeing how much of a great recording artist Elvis Presley was. And look, thank you all for taking the time out to return to my channel today. Much appreciated. And remembering Elvis this week is going to be so important to us all, and it's going to be upsetting for some people, and it's going to be great memories for some other people. Throughout this week, I'm going to try and be doing more uploads remembering the best entertainers that ever lived, and because I'm on holiday next week and I won't get the opportunity to do any uploads. So again, any upload you want me to do this week, please share in the comments below, and I will get that done as quickly as I possibly can. And again, I just want to say thank you, Elvis. Thank you for entering my life. Thank you for being the person you were and still are to this day. And Elvis, I love you. I will always love you. You will always be in my heart, and you will never be far away from me. And again, before I sign out, I'm wearing my International Elvis t-shirt in memory of the best entertainer that has ever walked the earth. And again, thank you to each and every one of you who has returned to the 100% Pure Elvis channel. Thank you for your continued support of my channel. I always sign out by saying, let's keep Elvis close to our hearts. Please keep on playing his music. Let's keep the memory of Elvis alive through music. And I love you all, everybody. Speak soon. Bye-bye.